What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we have my 7 sneaky starts and stats for week 7 of the fantasy football season. I know a lot of you guys are down bad. We have bye weeks, we have injuries across the board, and I am here to bring you today 7 starts that are outside of the expert consensus's top 30 at every ranking. So these guys are under the radar, some of them even available on waivers, where if you're in a tricky spot, I think these guys will help you out this week. So with all that being said, we have a ton to get into today. If you enjoy, make sure you go down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go. All right, now first up, we are going to talk through Josh Palmer. And the way we're going to do this video is I have player sort of, I don't know if you want to call these slides, but player blurbs here where I will give you the player, their expert consensus ranking, so that's ECR, my ranking, where I have them in my rankings. By the way, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. If you want my full, complete weekly rankings, that'll be on there. I update them every single, I drop them every Thursday, and then I update them Sunday morning, so that'll be on patreon.com/Ron Stewart. But if you're just looking for some sneaky starts, that's all good. And then we have the team total, so just how much are they implied to score based on the Vegas spread and over-under. And then the spread. Are they favorites? Are they underdogs in the game? Just to give you some context on how much higher the consensus I am, the game environment, and then the stat that is key here. So I really like Josh Palmer this week. He is the expert consensus wide receiver 35. I am 6 spots higher. I have him as my wide receiver 29. He's going to be on the road versus KC. And the stat here is that Josh Palmer has pretty much been a dog since the Mike Williams injury. Not a dog, but he's been commanding volume. The stat here is, since the Mike Williams injury in week 3, Josh Palmer has been the wide receiver 15 in expected points per game at 15.6 with a 2.08 yards per out run. This week he will be on the road versus a Chiefs defense that runs man coverage at the 5th highest rate in the league. Josh Palmer has a 2.31 yards per out run versus man, just 0.85 versus zone, making this a smash spot for Josh Palmer. So he's been kind of under the radar and a little bit unlucky here, but over the last 3 weeks, he has commanded a ton of volume. Where expected points per game, that XPPG number in my tweet, is based on your targets, your ADOT, your red zone targets. How many points per game should you have? Since the injury, he should be at 15.6 points per game as a top 15 fantasy wide receiver, but instead, he's at 10.3 points per game because of just, drops and just being unlucky. But we can see before and after, yes, the route percentage went up from 59.7% to 89.2%, but so has the efficiency with the yards per out run, the targets per out run, the expected points per game. The points per game is just a little bit lacking here. And you have Josh Palmer, who is going to be pretty much the second option after Keenan Allen in this passing game. Going into KC, they're 6-point underdogs. They're going to throw the ball a ton. We've seen it before with this Chargers offense. They play fast, they throw the football, and on an offense or on a defense that runs so much man coverage, that has been what Josh Palmer has excelled against this season. So I really like Josh Palmer as a nice flex play this week. I think he's in a smash matchup where if the Chargers are in comeback mode the entire time, Justin Herbert might throw the ball 50 times, which is going to be perfect for Josh Palmer. Now, our second sneaky start of the day is Zach Charbonnet. Zach Charbonnet is going to be at home versus the Cardinals. He is consensus RB41. He is my RB37. His team total is 26. That's the third highest in the NFL. And they are 7.5-point favorites at home here. Now, the stat is this Cardinals versus Seahawks game has the 4th highest over-under, and both teams are top 12 in neutral pace, which I have to my left here. My left, your right. That's from Fantasy Pros. I was actually sort of shocked. Fantasy Pros does some neutral pace data, which I've been looking for. I usually go to Football Outsiders, but Football Outsiders is extinct. Neutral pace data is actually sort of difficult to find out, or like accurate neutral pace. It's all kind of all over the place. I thought that this kind of looked good, but regardless, both teams, the Cardinals and the Seahawks, are top 12 in neutral pace, which means we have some shootout potential here. The Cardinals are allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs with 25.6 points per game, and after allowing 158 rushing yards to Kyren Williams, it wouldn't be shocking to see Charbonnet in the mix as a startable running back this week. Now, of course, Kenneth Walker's in front of him, but the key to beating the Cardinals is through the run game. Zach Charbonnet has found himself in some games where he ends up with like 40% of the snaps, and if that is this game where they're at home as favorites, maybe even in the 4th quarter they let Zach Charbonnet salt some of the game away, we'll see, but it wouldn't shock me if Zach Charbonnet mixed in for like 10 touches versus a defense that has been absolute Swiss cheese against running back. So if Kyren Williams get the 158 rushing yards, Kyren Williams has been great this year, but 158 rushing yards for Kyren Williams is pretty outrageous against any defense. So if they just allowed that to Kyren Williams, they are pretty awful in the trenches there. So I actually really like Zach Charbonnet, where, again, if you're down bad and you don't have a running back to start, Zach Charbonnet, to me, I'm at RB37, so that's like a fringe RB3 for me. Not a terrible, terrible start. Now, in the same game, we'll keep it in Seattle versus the Cardinals. We have JSN, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and he is the consensus wide receiver 48. He's my wide receiver 45, but I think I'm actually going to move him up a little bit higher than that as well. Again, in the same game with the shootout potential of this game, JSN is also a fun flex play. Last week, he set season highs in route percentage, ADOT, PFF grade, and PPR points. This week, he gets the Cardinals, who lead the league in fantasy points allowed out of the slot. JSN runs 77.1% of his routes out of the slot, 7th highest in the NFL. So we saw last week, I had this tweet, he ran 81% of the routes, highest of the year, highest ADOT at 7.4, his best PFF receiving grade 69.1, with his best PPR game yet. Now, that wasn't a huge game, right? Just 5 targets, 4 catches, 48 yards. He did have this one, I believe, I don't know if the play call itself was leaked, but he pretty much leaked out of the formation, got open deep over the Bengals defense, and Geno just didn't hit him. It wouldn't shock me. I mean, not a squeaky wheel game, but I think the staff almost might feel like they owe JSN one. I'm telling you, it wouldn't shock me at all if JSN had his best game to date as a pro here. I also have this graphic that I wanted to show, but I didn't have it ready to go just yet. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to clutch this. I think I will. But yeah, you can see this here. So this is a cool stat that the Edge provides. You can see I sorted it by F points out of the slot. They've allowed 155.9 fantasy points out of the slot this year again. That's where JSN is going to be operating. So it's kind of a match made in heaven. I know that a lot of people are going to be like, man, I've been burned by JSN. I started him last week. If bye weeks are here and you're looking at JSN against some really yucky options, I'm telling you, I think this is the week that you can put him in the flex spot and start him with confidence. Now, somebody else you can put in the flex spot and start with a little bit of confidence here is going to be Wandale Robinson. Now, Wandale Robinson is the consensus wide receiver 42. He's my wide receiver 38, so I'm 4 spots higher than consensus. The team total is 17.25, 25th in the NFL. That is really, really low, but they are 3-point underdogs at home versus the Washington Commanders. And the stat here is Wandale is coming off a season-high 73% route participation with his first top 24 finish with 14.2 PPR points. This game has the chance to be up-tempo, with the Giants being top 6 in seconds per play, as we can see here. Shout out to Sam Hoppin for that data. You can see plays per game, Giants are 6, seconds per play, Giants are 4th. And I list that, of course. So Giants top 6 in seconds per play and plays per game, while Washington's opponents are 12th in plays per game. So that means there's a lot of plays happening, right? The Giants are going to be up-tempo, snapping the ball with a lot of seconds left. And then on top of that, you have Washington, who kind of forces their opposing teams to pass the ball, not even just pass the ball, but just run a ton of plays, just because kind of the chaotic nature of what the Washington games have been. You can remember this past week versus the Falcons had to pass the ball a ton. They had that weird shootout versus the Eagles. They just had a lot of weird games. I think same thing with the Broncos this year as well. And after that, I really should just read the entire stat, but I'm trying to give some context here. They also have the biggest offensive line, defensive line mismatch, according to Establish the Run, with the 8th-ranked defensive line of the Commanders against the 32nd-ranked Giants offensive line. The Giants should be running an up-tempo, check-down style offense as 3-point underdogs. Washington is also allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to wide receivers. So it's kind of this perfect storm of the Giants having to play fast, having to play from behind, having to get the ball out quickly with a weak offensive line, and then also Wandale Robinson finally getting into the mix. Season-high route participation, really high target per route run numbers. He's a guy who commands a ton of targets. It wouldn't shock me if he had a nice little PPR game of 8 for 60 and gave you something usable in your flex spot. Now, again, I'm telling you, we're kind of dumpster diving in this video, and that's kind of the beauty of it. But 5th, now we're really dumpster diving here. Darrell Henderson, I really like this week. I'm actually going to check while I'm live recording this, but I'm pretty sure he should be available in almost every league. I might actually, as I'm recording this video, I might actually add him in my home league. I don't think that he's, now don't get me wrong, Darrell Henderson is not a smash start by any means, but yeah, he's rostered in 0.6% of leagues right now. And if you're down bad, Darrell Henderson, you could do a lot worse than Darrell Henderson at running back here. I think I'd prefer Darrell Henderson. I'm at RB41 here, but I might even bump him up a little bit more tomorrow as we get more information. But he is very, very interesting, Darrell Henderson, where if we look back over the years, you have Darrell Henderson getting signed by the Rams. Now, of course, damn, I forgot to write how much I'm higher. I'm like 25 spots higher than consensus. That consensus RB65 number is like fake. He's like, for me, he's in the mix for like the RB40s. Team total 23.25, tied for 7th in the NFL. 3-point favorites to the Steelers at home. And the stat is Darrell Henderson is behind just Todd Gurley in PPR points scored at running back for the Sean McVay Rams 2017 to present day. With Sean McVay hesitant to announce a starter, I don't mind Darrell Henderson as a desperation start. The Rams are home favorites versus Steelers, who are allowing the 7th most fantasy points to running backs here. And we can see, right, Darrell Henderson, 2nd most fantasy points among all Rams running backs during Sean McVay's tenure. And here, the Sean McVay's quote. Coach Speak Index is a fun account on Twitter. I don't know if any of you guys follow him, but he kind of tracks like what coaches say. I still don't really know how to value it. He has McVay has a 75% reliability rating on usage and workload Coach Speak, and a 90% reliability on depth chart Coach Speak. So I don't really know what any of that means, like relative to other coaches, but it sounds okay. But regardless, the quote is really what matters here. Coach Sean McVay on whether rookie running back Zach Evans is on track to start this week. I wouldn't say that. All 4 of those guys are possibilities, and we're truly navigating through that. McVay also said he's gotten better, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he handles this week. Not the most ringing of endorsements for Evans. Maybe that changes on Friday, but he's looking like a clear avoid this week. Now, I don't know that Zach Evans is a clear avoid, but I think what it says is all 4 of them have an equal shot, and to me, Darrell Henderson has the most, again, he has the most experience in this offense, where when you're sort of shuffling the deck with 6 days of preparation since they last had a game with Kyren Williams, why not the guy who's most familiar with the scheme, the system, knows the play calls and everything? So Darrell Henderson, as long as he's not in like the most brutal shape of all time and he like let himself go on the couch or whatever, I think Darrell Henderson is going to be at least in the mix to be like the 1B in this offense this week. Now, you could go out there, lay a goose egg, but again, if you're rolling the dice and, maybe you had Roschon Johnson and, it seems like he's not playing at this point and you just have nothing going at running back, Darrell Henderson out there in every single league, you can pick him up and you can kind of just put him in your lineup and pray. But again, I don't think it's the most hopeless, Hail Mary of all time either here. Now, after Darrell Henderson, we have Michael Mayer. Now, Michael Mayer is the consensus tight end 19 this week. He is my tight end 12. I'm 7 spots higher than the consensus. His team total is 20, so that's like about league average. And then the spread, they are 2.5-point favorites on the road versus Chicago. I believe Justin Fields has been officially ruled out, and so is Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, the stat here is Michael Mayer set season highs in route percentage, target per route run, target percentage, and finished as the tight end 5 last week. The Bears are allowing the 9th most fantasy points, 7th most yards, and 5th highest target share to opposing tight ends. Michael Mayer is rostered in just 7.8% of ESPN leagues. So he gets a really nice matchup here. He looked great last week where his yards per catch was great. Like, he was like efficient. He was catching balls downfield. He was looking very, very good, Michael Mayer. And assuming that he's leapfrogged Austin Hooper at this point and he's approaching that 70% plus route participation area, to me, he's very much in the mix of like Luke Musgrave, and he could be very well the next Sam Laporta for this season. The only issue is that the Raiders' offense is much worse than the Lions. Michael Mayer, to me, is still very, very interesting, and I actually really like him this week. And what's kind of going to be like a nasty-ish type of game here, Bears versus the Raiders. And a little bit, if you want a little bit of narrative talk as well, Michael Mayer went to Notre Dame, going to Chicago. I believe Chicago and Notre Dame are like an hour and some change away from each other. A little bit of a homecoming game for him. Now, this one is dumpster. Okay, this one we are officially, if I had the editing capabilities, I right now would just like AI over myself, like Oscar the Grouch right now. Like, we are another man's trash is another man's treasure, thrift shopping right now. If you're in a deep league, I know I've gotten questions. I've gotten questions before from you guys like, oh, it's my 16-team league and I'm picking between like 2 absolute scrubs from the bottom of the barrel this week. Who should I start, Ron? Please tell me who. And it's like, man, like, that is brutal. So if you're in one of those spots, you're down horrendous. Brandon Powell. I don't mind Brandon Powell. Again, don't hit me up. I know that some of you guys are going to be in the comments, Ron, who should I start between Brandon Powell and Jacoby Myers? Start Jacoby Myers. Stop it with the nonsense. But if you're truly, truly in your bag and there's nothing available, Brandon Powell isn't awful. Okay, he's consensus wide receiver 64. He's my wide receiver 54. Team total for the Vikings, 18.5, tied for 21st. Not supposed to score a ton. They're at home, 7-point underdogs here. Now, the stat with Brandon Powell is the 49ers' opponents are passing the ball 2.9% over expectation, 5th highest in the NFL. As 7-point underdogs, the Vikings will have to pass the ball to keep up with the 49ers, who run zone coverage 73.9% of the time, 8th highest in the NFL. Enter Vikings wide receiver Brandon Powell, who is 29th in the NFL in yards per out run versus zone at 2.17. Neither KJ Osborne or Jordan Addison are inside the top 50. In the absence of Justin Jefferson last week, Brandon Powell ran a season-high 76% of the routes. So Brandon Powell is now the KJ Osborne of this offense, and he has earned targets and been efficient versus zone. 2.17 yards per run versus zone is no joke this year. Now, it's on a pretty small sample, but it is very interesting that he has eaten up zone, whereas KJ Osborne has pretty much been a non-factor versus zone. Addison hasn't been great against zone. Like 1.26 and 0.86 are both very bad route runs versus zone. So it wouldn't shock me at all. This is an offense that likes to use a third wide receiver. Brandon Powell could get involved. Maybe he catches 5. Maybe he goes like 5 for 50, maybe the touchdown as well. If you want to, look, we don't give out betting advice, but if you want your Ronnie Two Locks play of the week, give me Brandon Powell touchdown. Give me Brandon Powell anytime touchdown. I have to imagine if you can get Brandon Powell anytime touchdown score for plus 400 or longer, boom, lock that in. And whatever his over-under is, I don't know what it is. I wonder if Underdog has it on their pick'ems. I doubt they have a Brandon Powell higher, lower right now, but I will check just to see. Which, by the way, use promo code Ron if you're new to Underdog Fantasy. I've also been ripping, dude. I have probably 10. I have 10 at this point of these double dribbles done where they have NBA season long. I talked about it before. I know a lot of you guys just like football, but basketball to me was meant for best ball. Like basketball, hockey, all of that. Anything that has more than one game per week. I'm not doing waivers for that. I'm not setting lineups multiple times a week. Like literally get out of here with that. I played basketball in high school. I didn't play football in high school. And there's a reason that I've never been involved with fantasy basketball. It's just too much. But what was I looking for? Oh, yeah, the pick'em for Brandon Powell. That was going all over the place. But, yeah, promo code Ron gets you a deposit match up to I think it's $500 right now. Yeah, no, there's no. I knew there was going to be no Brandon Powell higher or lowers, which is fine. I mean, it probably would be the line's probably 8.5 for Brandon Powell. But someone to keep an eye out for. I don't know how useful Brandon Powell is going to be for most of you guys, but I tried to really dumpster dive here, focus it on the sneaky starts, because look, I know you guys are going to complain. You guys are going to be like, Ron, no one's starting Brandon Powell, which fine, but I've gotten complaints in the past where it's Ron, everyone's starting this guy. He's inside the top 24. Everybody sucks. He's going in my lineup regardless. So tried to sort of do some dumpster diving here. Let me know how you felt about that video, the format, whatever. Leave a comment, subscribe. I think only half of you guys that watch the video are subscribed right now. Let's get that number up. Let's get a little 60-40, 65-35 going, something like that. We're at the part of the year. Things are coming to a little bit of a halt here. So if you find yourself watching these videos every week and you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Me, myself, this is my personal YouTube account. You can literally check the about. I've had this since 2011. And even myself, I find myself, I'll be watching a video, a guy I really like, he'll be like, subscribe, whatever, and I'll check and be like, damn, I thought I was subscribed months ago, and I'm not. So maybe something like that's going on. Make sure you check it out, subscribe, leave a like, and as always, I will see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like